Welcome to the Next Fix podcast. It's going to be another great adventure here on the show. I've got a fantastic guest here. This is Shannon Schlett. And it didn't take me long to realize she is familiar with two things that we talk about often here, and that's addiction with substances, to be specific, and then rock bottom like moments, challenges, if you will, if you want to put it nicely, challenges. But she knows what it feels like when you're near the bottom and you can't let go of that damn shovel. But nonetheless, we're going to talk about her past, what she's got going on these days, and then of course, her bright future ahead, because that's what we're all about. We're about orienting ourselves towards a brighter future here on the Next Fix. Shannon, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Ryan. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Right, and we're gonna dive into it. We're gonna dive into the struggle. We want to know how and why you consider yourself a part of this, rough and tumbled family of addicts and nefarious characters, reforms. So hit us with it. Hit us. What did it look like when things got nasty?
Most definitely. I really appreciate the fact that you say, family of addicts, because that's a big portion of what we do here at Face It Together, is being able to connect with people, right? The resolution to addiction can definitely be connection. A little bit about my struggle, essentially. If we go as far back as childhood, there was always a feeling that I didn't belong. I'm from North Dakota originally, and I grew up in a family that was all white. My mother had an affair with a gentleman out of Oregon. She was always in and out of prison, and the gentleman out of Oregon that she'd hooked up with clearly was black. She had gotten extradited on her charges. My stepdad had convinced her to come home. She went to prison, had me in prison. My stepdad had come out, signed the birth certificate because I was lighter, and then later on I had realized I was black. I've come before then. Before I was born, they had 3 children together. My mother struggled with addiction her whole life. I'd like to say my father struggles with addiction as well. He'll never view it that way. My mother will be at a place of admittance for that.
Right. And so Shannon, I wanna just I know my mother is actively in addiction, and she's like nowhere near. And so when you touch on like one parent, admitting to the situation, the reality, and then the other one, not admitting to it, I get that feeling, and that's a whole other story in itself, I suppose. But I often find myself like, what would happen if she did say, hey, guess what? I've been fucking up. I need help. Like, I know that that's a very far reality, but I know the feeling of like, kind of seeing the light a little bit myself, and just being like, come on, but it just may not be in the cards, and I get that.
For sure, the wanting to kind of just shake them, like, you can have this too.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Growing up in that environment, my mother being in and out of prison, I mean, she was the majority of my life, essentially.
Can I ask you something? How old was she when she had you? Was she a young mother, or was she like...
my mother, the first child she had at 17. So my oldest brother, she had at 17. She and my stepdad were both 17. And then after that, she had my sister Jessica. After that, she had my sister Anna. So it was kind of one after another. So they had 3 children together at a very young age. And then when she had me, I want to say it would have been 23, 24, around there. And getting back to, being raised in a family where, looking at myself today, I know I'm beautiful. I know I'm stunning. I know I'm all these things. But I grew up in a place, North Dakota, rich farm towns, and we were poor in those farm towns. And so you grow up around people who are white, blue-eyed, blonde hair, and that's the idea of beauty. especially growing up in the 90s. You wanted to be thin. Well, I was curvy in all the right places now, but then it wasn't necessarily the idea or the depiction of what beautiful was. And so you have
Right.
these siblings that you're never identified with. You have these siblings that you know, I don't want to say ugly duckling, but that's how it felt, right?
You're the outsider for sure,
Yeah,
in both
definitely.
an appearance and like the feeling. Like you felt like an
Hmm.
outsider, you looked like an outsider, and then that's a tough combination.
Hmm. And so at some point, you know, when my mother had gotten out of prison that first time, our stepfather had taken her back, and they had decided to move forward. After that, they had two more children together. My mother has always struggled with whether it's addiction, and then what she essentially began to do was to teach all of us children how to steal. And so being
Wow.
poor, being, you know, lower class, and I'm not sure how familiar you are with my area, but in North Dakota, we had a big flood of 97 that displaced the third biggest city in North Dakota. And so everybody being displaced out of that metropolitan, that area, that was something we were a part of. And my parents had had five kids at that time. And so we get
Wow.
displaced from the only home that we've known. Stepfather was going through his own things with alcohol, and I would believe other substances. Again, no admittance there at all. But I am to the understanding, you know, my mother was always struggling with what in the day was crank, and essentially evolving into methamphetamine and whatnot. Um, and you could tell when we didn't have homes, or the homes that we did stay in were abandoned farmsteads. I remember some of the homes we had having black mold in the basement, being flooded up
Mm.
into this our waistline, the basements of that matter. No insulation, uh, having
Right.
holes in
Right.
the floor so the heat could come up out of wood stoves. Like that was kind of the idea of my childhood. You were embarrassed to invite people over because of that. So you didn't have those close relationships with friends. You didn't really have a place to turn, even if you wanted one, because you were either living out on a farmstead or robbing a TJ Maxx with your mother. Those were,
Right. Were
and
you so were you going to school? Was that part there, or how did
yep,
that were you
yep.
like
So
you were okay?
yep, so we were going to school. I think I've been to at least 10 different schools through my
Oh
elementary days.
wow.
Yeah, eight to 10, roughly. And that was the thing. We jumped around quite a bit, and I could count countless homes that we've lived in. You know, we did go to school. You know, there was the parts where social service workers had come to talk to us, ask us how we're doing, things like that. And our mother was very, you know, don't you say anything. And kind of getting back to the struggle, you know, I remember going into grocery stores, loading up grocery carts, and being told to run out with them. Doing that in TJ Maxx's and Walmart's, and loading up carts and putting things in storage totes. Being taught how to take the sensors off so they didn't make buzzing at the door, things of that nature. And with my parents being where they were at with their life, and their substance use disorders, you know, there was a lot of arguments, there was a lot of fighting, there was a lot of resentment, which I'm not going to say it would have directly been related to me, but I know that my stepfather had, you know, his affairs, and my mother had
Mm,
whatever she
yeah.
had done, and you know, that was a lot of tension in that household. And so when they would be arguing, or things got abusive, us kids would be upstairs, and for whichever reason it felt right, I'd say, oh, I'm just gonna go live with my dad, I'm gonna go do this. And you know, when you live with people who have manipulative tendencies, and you live with
Right.
people who have tendencies to lie or to be hurtful, your children learn that. And so my siblings were hurtful. You know, what would your dad
Right.
do for you? And something that my mother kind of stood on all feet with for a long time was when we would ask why I was different, she would say, oh, I was raped. And that's how she
Oh,
introduced that to
wow.
us as children, where that wasn't the
Yeah.
truth at all. So not only do I not feel as if I belong, I feel like I am the product of a horrible event in my mother's life.
Well, so and you are, and so, yeah,
I'm.
but you are mentally, you're looking for an escape. You want
Mhm,
out. You're thinking to yourself like that it's not good.
mhm.
And as a child, like how old are you at this point? You're
These early memories are 4 or 5, and I was
got it.
actually
Okay.
visiting with my therapist not too long ago, and I had shared my thought on something. But my first suicidal moment that I can remember was at the age of 5.
Oh
I
my
had
God. Yeah.
yelled to my sister, "I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna kill myself." And I had a knife to my chest, and I was uncontrollably crying, inconsolable, and I don't quite, you know, I don't know what essentially ended up to be that bad that day. But for me to even have the idea to do that, or to feel that way, or
Right.
to to want to escape in that manner and carrying that into my juvenile years, it's sad. It really hurts my
Yeah.
soul to know that my childhood self felt that way. Later, about the age of 4 or 5, my older sisters and myself, we had an older cousin that lived out at our grandmother's house, and we had an incident where he had sexually assaulted or molested my older sisters, and me, not to the extent that I can remember a lot of it. There are pieces that come and go of it. Um, and we had gone through, my sisters had reported it, and we had gone through social services with it and things of that nature. And I want to say child therapies and whatnot. And I think our parents were on the right track of dealing with that. Our cousin was sent to a home for some reason, to kind of sort out what he
Hmm.
was going through. And it was a really sad moment for us. And carrying that into my juvenile years and being either, for lack of a better word, prude or hypersexual. For me, I started off as prude, and then essentially getting into my drug use, it was hypersexual activity, wanting that attention from people who would
Right.
give it, I guess.
So you start like miscalculating, you if you will, like affection. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this person's affectionate and it's
It's like, oh, you
far
like
from
me.
it. Yeah, it's like, oh, you really care, and it's yeah, I get that, and that's very sad. It's a very very sad, because I think what you're stepping into here is now your early teens.
Mm-hmm.
And then I from reading your bio, I know what starts happening in your early teens, right? So this is, you introduced the drugs first, and then the hypersexual activity started kind of coming with the territory. Am I right?
Mm-hmm. So, essentially, you know, moving around a lot. My mother ended up going to jail. My mother ended up going to prison again. We ended up in foster care. My sister and I. We ended up in foster care together. My younger sister and I. My littlest brother was by himself, and my older sisters, they were in a safe home. And so we
Mm-hmm.
were all scattered essentially. Our stepdad had gotten us back in about a year or so. And when he did get us back, he was in the midst of a new relationship. And bless her soul, she was an amazing woman. She was a comforting woman. She was a good woman. But I don't think she had an idea of the extent of the things that we had been through. And she'd never held our father accountable for some of the things that we were subjected to. And so with that
Right.
came a lot of invalidation for us as children. Seeing their relationship on a pedestal, and he put her on a pedestal where we were tossed to the side as quote unquote Angie's kids, because
Got
essentially
it.
they
Yeah.
had their own child together. And our
Yep.
youngest brother was so young he was able to call her mother. I wouldn't, I'm not, there wasn't a crazy amount of abuse or anything of that nature, but there was a
Of
lack of
course not.
understanding and compassion. And that is something
Yeah.
that every single one of us could use in that moment. You've gone through the things that we had gone through, been subjected to the things that our mother had, and also the lack of availability of our father to be emotionally present for those things. It was hard. It was hard. We were facing these big life changes alone, and then now to see him in a new relationship after going through foster care and things of that nature, and my sister's in a safe home, and it was hard. It was hard for all of us. So I was always a really good student. A honor roll, B honor roll, all those things. I did treasurer of FBLA. I was on student council. I did theater. I did volleyball. I did basketball. I did all those things, right? All those things
Okay.
that's supposed to say, "Hey, look at me, Dad. Look at
Right.
me. Like I'm feeling it, right?" Because prior to that, my older sisters had been, dropouts, and
Right.
I was supposed to be the first one to graduate. It was supposed to be that for me. But you never, always seeking that outer validation and never getting it, it does something to you, especially when you grow up in these towns that, you know, a kid farts and all of a sudden it's gold. I'm from very small towns, and you saw a lot of the smallest things get celebrated by these parents because they were emotionally available. They were raised on different terms and had these morals, these values. Smaller towns are
Right.
going to be very much so religious based and community and things of that nature. And that was essentially our whole family was on the outside looking in on that. And when you
Mm.
felt so out of place in that, it left you to look for different connections, and that's where I was. So I stopped doing the basketball. I stopped doing the volleyball. I stopped doing the extracurriculars. I was always working. I was a lifeguard. I did small little like Dairy Queen like things or whatever. And
Right.
I think first job was a grocery store. I always got that grasp of having my own money. Okay, what am I gonna do with it? Started hanging out with the seniors when I was like in 8th grade. All right, cool. I think the first time I was introduced to crystal meth was someone had asked me if I wanted to do a line off the back of the toilet seat at a Melby's Food Pride.
Right. So 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 now you've mentioned like you've mentioned the small towns, and I know that I've lived in small towns. I've lived in different towns. I've lived in Las Vegas. I've lived in different areas, and I've been in places where I'm like, oh, this is a meth town. Like I'm like, or like I'm in Florida now. It's like Miami's a
Yeah.
bit more of like a cocaine city. It's like
Yep.
I don't I say it lightly because I inappropriately cope with humor. But was it considered a meth town? Like I know that some towns are like they're pill towns and like everybody's on
Mhm.
OxyContin. And was meth like the thing that was it everywhere?
It wasn't everywhere, not necessarily, but if it was, so when I say small town, I'm going to go ahead and get back to the idea of good sense of community, good sense of morals, good sense
Okay.
of values. So when people did do meth or did, get in trouble for losing their children, it was how the hell did that happen? Where,
Oh, okay.
what is going on? We need to, some people want to offer support, but it's also that gossip on top of the support. So
Mm,
it's the
mm,
support because it's their religion, because it's their, the Christian faith part of them. Or, some people really did have good, um, what's the word, good motives and whatnot. But at the same time, they'd be the same people to have something to say about it later. So that's
mm.
where I get the idea of small town. We were very
Got
much
it.
so good communities, good people, God fearing people, essentially, and just a beautiful community. And so when had people who utilized substances, you were very much so out of the circle. And so when I had gotten offered, I think one of my coworkers offered me a line of crystal meth on the toilet seat. I didn't do it. But I was still good for saying no. If you were to label it as something, you could say alcohol town, big old trucks, people drinking, things of that nature.
Right.
And
Right.
so that was the first thing. We start drinking. You start drinking with people. You get invited to parties. I ended up
Right.
having my own car that I bought myself, and so I had a way of means to hang out with the older kids that I was hanging out with. And the next thing you end up doing is smoking some marijuana. Okay, cool, that's cool, but it's not quite the thing. And you go to bigger parties, you meet more people. I did some cocaine for a while, and then I remember the first opioid I ever done was a Watson, a green Watson, and so it's a hydrocodone, and
Right.
someone crushed it up for me, and I remember the way that it hit. I remember just leaning back, like, okay, this is what it feels to not have to be so tightly wound, to not have to be
Right.
so just worried. Alcohol made me fun, weed made me quiet, reserved, but the opioid, the hydros, they made me just for not care. Not
Right.
care. I
Right.
didn't have
Right.
to care about
Right.
having straight A's because nobody else cared. I didn't have to care about going to volleyball because nobody else cared. And it was,
Right.
why care if no one else does? And that's that disconnection from self, right? And
Right. And so the opioids like immediately lifted some weight off of you. Am I
oh,
right?
most
Like
definitely, most definitely.
right.
I love that you put it that way. Because yeah, it took the pressure to be perfect off, or to even attempt to be perfect. And
Right.
so, you start not going to school, you start skipping, you start, um, I think at that time somebody had backed into my car. And because my car was only in my name, the insurance ended up coming through. The check was written to me. So I got like 2 grand. I was,
Mm.
15 or 16, running around with 2 grand in my pocket. And
Right.
what would have been like 2003, 2004. That was a good
Right.
time, right?
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. It goes
I
a
can't
long
tell you
way.
where that money went, but it was a good time. And
Right.
so, we would
I've
go.
gotten some checks like that, and I'm like, man, I'm hood rich. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna drop this on. I'm gonna do a little bit of gambling, and I'm gonna get some drugs. it
Yeah,
was very
yeah.
clear where that money was going, and I was like, it has to go there in my mind. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
it's already spent. I'm on my way,
Right.
So I
Right. So you run with it. And, I think I took that money and I ended up going to neighboring cities, like smaller towns. And we have big immigrant, a lot of migration that happens. So a lot of Mexican immigrants. And so with that comes new introductions to new things. And so I'm doing more cocaine, I'm drinking more. I'm hanging out with older men. I hadn't become, I guess, promiscuous at that moment yet. It was more
Mhm.
just hanging out, trying to vibe. But you start meeting new people, still not caring. Stopped going to school. I remember getting into arguments with my parents about it, but it wasn't ever enough for them to take any kind of action. I think they were just in acceptance of you. We can't control what she wants to do. And then I ran away to Bismarck, North Dakota, and it was essentially just supposed to be away for a party weekend. And my car, we decided to take it off roading. Long story short, it was not working for a little while. Big old storm came, blizzard came, so I got snowed in. Started hanging out with these people, and we're doing more different substances. I hadn't hit meth yet, but we were drinking. We were robbing. We robbed a bar at that time. We were robbing chip trucks, beef jerky trucks, backyards,
Wow.
construction places, and then we would sell things. We'd make money. And that was just kind of it was cool to be that unpredictable for me. At some point, my older sister called a welfare check in on me because I was 17 at that time. Rewind a bit, the majority of my life, I've always struggled with self harm and suicidal ideation. And so, in my early years, um, before I had really started using substances, I would cut my wrist, I would cut around my ankles, and it wasn't ever necessarily to kill myself, but it was a good release for me for the pressure that I was enduring.
Right.
And um, taking with that opioid and that opioid taking that pressure and that relief for me, I had, essentially subdued the self harm I was committing. Getting back to where I was at when my sister had called a welfare check on me, they had thought I was with some sex offender, but I wasn't. It was just another guy named Nate. And they had a bunch of police waiting for me, and I got essentially sent back to Grand Forks to live with my parents. I turned 18 like a month later. But I ended up working at a restaurant in Grand Forks after all this had happened. And my car got fixed, all that. And I work at this restaurant, and I meet this beautiful Latina girl. And I don't know what it was about her. I knew I was always interested in women my whole life. I knew that was what I wanted. I knew, there was something about
Ah.
girls. I was always the tomboy aspect. I was always, there was a time where I had shaved my head, and I always presented masculinity. But I always
But
had the
that's
idea.
it doesn't seem. I mean, unless the story goes another direction, it didn't seem like that was the source of the pain. There's a laundry list of sources and reasons and explanations that you've given, but this hadn't been one. It doesn't seem like it seemed like maybe you kind of had known, and it wasn't. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It just doesn't seem like that was like the a major source of pain. And in fact, it probably felt pretty good to finally act on it. Am I right?
Oh, most definitely. I remember from like the earliest of age of like 5, making out with, like, kissing my little Raggedy Ann doll was kind of like life size. I remember when Titanic came out and getting to see Kate Winslet in all her glory, and that was a big moment for me. And I remember trying to draw that picture, right, and my sister finding it and kind of like, why is Shannon drawing these pictures? Because I was trying to draw Kate like a French girl, I guess. And
I
I
get
hope everybody gets a good laugh out of this, but it's real, right? It's real facts. And I remember telling my brother, hey, I just wish I could be a boy because you guys have it easier. You just get to take the garbage out and call it good. And I think at that moment I had shared that I had liked a friend in like the second grade or something like that, and my mom blew up,
Mm.
and my mother, she was in a Catholic school when she was younger, and she's very much so very religious, but the parts of the religion that she wants to believe or to
Uh,
yeah,
right. picking and choosing Christianity, right? Yeah, those people are the best. It's like, oh, you only want to be, yeah, like you could steal, lie, and all this stuff, but it's like, hey, if you're gay, you're going straight to hell. It's like, wow, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, you just like drawing your own lines here. So that
Yep.
is tough, though.
So a big part of that, that day, she had told me to go to my room and wait till my father got home, and she didn't want to see me, so I cried, and like I was too fat to get under the bed, so I just put my head under the bed so no one could see me, and I just cried over there, and so just
Oh,
and then my stepdad comes home and he asked me, "Oh, what's going on?" And I said, I told everybody I liked my friend because she's my friend. He's like, "Oh, just as a friend?" I said, "Yes." And he was able to ask the questions to make me say the right answer so that I could just be done with.
right,
And so then I never brought it up again. Um, and going back to being 18 and meeting this beautiful girl, and we're connecting, we're talking, and she shares she's bisexual. And then she says, do what do you do for fun? And I said, oh, I party sometimes. I like to dabble with this, dabble with that. And she's like, have you ever done meth? I said, no, but, like, what's up? And she's like, oh, well, let's go hang out with my sister, blah, 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 blah. So my thought is, if this beautiful girl, it's so amazing in my head, does meth, it can't be that bad. No matter how many seminars I've seen in schools, no matter how many times they say, just don't do it, no matter the
right.
dare or the red ribbon week, let's do it because this person says it's okay. And I'm looking for that belonging. I'm looking for my place and it feels right. So we ended up using meth together. She was a big part of the early days of my addiction. We would party together. We would, get balls of dope together. There was times where we had gotten ripped off, and if we knew who ripped us off, we would go vandalize their car, and we always got away with it. Vandalize anybody's car that was even remotely friends with them and had
Right.
nothing. We did some really shitty things, to be honest. But I was always a thicker girl, so I ended up losing some weight. That felt good. And then at this point, I started, I guess, doing my makeup more, being more feminine presenting. And then, she and I were messing around at the time, but she was very promiscuous. So then I started messing around with men at the time. And, you start feeding your addiction in different ways. And
So
we,
it's all snowballing into but this all honestly, it doesn't seem like it's completely fallen off the rails. This is kind of like when you're still limping along.
mm-hmm,
You're kind of okay with it. Am I right? Like it's like there are some moments where you're like, this isn't so bad. I lost some weight. I'm looking a little bit.
yeah.
It's like right.
So
And so in it,
you're letting it creep up on you. You're just putting your
exactly
toes in it, and that's what it is. It's creeping up on you. So we were managing just fine, and then all of a sudden she quits her job. So I'm like, well, fuck this job too. So I quit the job, and we're staying in her mom's basement, still doing dope. We run out of money. No, we run out of ways to get the dope. So what are other ways to get high? We end up going to grocery stores and taking Robitussin off the line and quercetin pills and Zycam, because if you chug enough of it, you get this really cool robo trip. And so we're doing that. And that wasn't quite as much as my thing as it was hers. I ended up hanging out with some other people and kind of diverting away from her. She really didn't treat me well, and it ended up not being what I had thought it'd been. She really struggled with the Robitussin and the Zycam, and her mother cared for her deeply and sent her to a treatment center, and she was able to get well. And when she came back, she was a million times better for a while. And I went my other direction. So I ended up getting into a house with some friends, some people. I ended up going back to work. I got a little car for a while, so I felt that little dip, and I got back up. At that time, I started hanging out with a couple different friends and went back into the opioids more. Took a bit of a break from the meth and I got back into the opioids, Percocets, the greens, some good hydros, things of that nature. And somebody had said, well, have you ever done this before? And they started sucking on a morphine 30 to take the coat off. And he showed me how to crush it up and boil it up and shoot it up.
right,
So
right,
that was the first time I shot up. And that was gold for me. That was what I had been searching for a long time. The moment it hit, you just lean back and you could just feel it travel through every single inch of your body. I get
Hmm.
goosebumps thinking about it now because it was
Right, right.
it was it was it was the cure all.
Yeah, yeah. It is a cure all. There's very few biologically. Like, you can't. It's tough to feel better than you do in that one moment. But it is
Hmm.
just that moment, or
Yeah.
it's very short lived.
Yeah, it is. It is most definitely. And so the Morph 30 that he introduced me to, excuse me, Morphine 30s that he introduced me to, I ended up learning that I had a pretty good uh, connection for those. And it was somebody who only trusted me. And so they would stockpile them for their back pain because they only smoked marijuana and they wouldn't use them. And it was something that really funded their household. So I would go and I
Right.
would get these prescriptions for very, very, very cheap. And I was able to make 3 grand a month off of them, fuel my addiction, and be that go-to person. Be that go-to person. So here I am shooting up morphine. And I dabbled back in the meth a bit. So at nighttime, I like to say that when I was doing morphine, I was a closet user. I would just chill, hang out, and there were very few people who knew. And so I would hang out, and it would just be my nod off, just ready to fall into it. And if I didn't wake up, I was okay with it. Like my self worth, my
Okay.
value was so low on myself that if
Right.
I nodded off too far this time, it wouldn't be a big deal. Like I'm cool with dying. It was really ugly. It's really ugly to say. Like I was cool if I didn't wake up.
If you're okay with, is this what you consider the rock bottom? Like, if you're all right with just,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
where I would be at. Because then this essentially, as I was still making that money ended up going back into fueling the meth because I would okay, so I would be using the morphine. Well, then what's gonna make me feel better in the morning and be a good worker? Well, it was the meth. So then I would do a shot, blast the meth before work, and go
Mm.
into to work, and I would be the best worker ever, getting stuff done. I used to bartend, serve. I was in the restaurant industry for a very long time, and so they were just two, they were on very two different ends of the spectrum, and they did exactly what I needed them to do.
Right.
But then you quit your job again. So then I quit my job again because it's going back to the creeping, and so then you're back at the rock bottom, somebody's nasty basement, hanging out, shooting up.
Right.
Um, you start
So
messing around.
so when did you draw the line in the sand? When did you say, like, hey, I'm done with this
Yeah.
cycle? Right? Like,
So that's it. Yeah, that's the next part. Thanks for asking. So me and a friend were hanging out, and we were using. I think we were just smoking meth that day, and we ended up snorting some Xanax, some Klonopin. It was a pretty big cocktail of things that day. I think
right, it
ecstasy
sounds
as
like it.
well.
Yeah.
And I had gotten over this breakup because of my drug addiction, and it hit pretty hard. I think that's really why I started dabbling as hard as I did, because it was like my second girl relationship. And so I'm hanging out with this guy, and he's hanging out with me, and he's also going through a breakup. And we're like, well, why are we so sad for? And so then we end up hooking up. Mind you, I think at that time I had maybe been with like a handful of people, and I was always really big on sexual health, condoms, things of that nature. And this is the one person I was like, oh, who cares? So that happened a few more times, and I ended up pregnant. The day that I ended up pregnant, I was using the restroom, and when you're pregnant, you have this heightened senses of whatnot. And I was like, oh, why does it smell so bad? And I'm like, oh, I don't have my period. Oh no! And everything just starts clicking, going together like a puzzle. So I go to my best friend Sam's house. I take a pregnancy test, positive. Take another one, positive. I was coming down hard that day too, and she, God bless, man, that's my girl right there, Sam. She struggled with alcoholism for a very long time, and she was in a really good place in her journey at that time. And she's the best friend in the whole world. She was exactly what I needed, that support. And she said, "Well, what are you gonna do?" And I said, "I, I don't know." And I just turned off my phone and I detoxed on her couch for the next 2 weeks. Oh,
Wow. Wow.
I was ups and downs, throwing up. I mean, we all know the works of it, sweating it out. It, everything's just, it's like you're getting the best way I describe my detox. Someone's just taking you and wringing you out, just wringing
Do
you out
you
like a wet
do you
towel.
think do you think that you're also, like, pregnancy sick too? Like, do you think that was like, you're like nauseous from the pregnancy and you're dope sick? Like, that
I
sounds
don't
like a,
think so because
okay, okay.
after that 2-3 weeks, of really going through the withdrawals, because I've had withdrawals before, right? And if it were to be pregnancy sickness, I feel that nausea would have been a lot different for me.
Right,
Um,
right,
and I mean, it could have been, but after I got through the withdrawals, my pregnancy was, whoop, it was the easiest thing ever. I pride myself in having such an easy pregnancy, and that's why I'll probably never do it again, because I hear that not all babies are, not all pregnancies are the same. But so, I go through those motions of getting right. I had hooked up with a different guy in that same time who happened to be very rich and very wealthy, and I played the cards I needed to play and asked for help for money for an abortion. Just acted like it was his, and he gave me the money, no problem. And I go to the hospital because to do the abortion, you have to confirm the pregnancy. So I go to the hospital and they're trying to hear the heartbeat, and they couldn't hear the heartbeat. And I'm sober at this time, and so they send me down for an ultrasound, and I get the ultrasound, and you see this little bitty alien head and little bitty body, and my heart melted. And at that moment, I had decided that I could continue to be. And I took the money that I had taken for the abortion. I was able to put it down on a little apartment. I moved in with a pillow, a blanket, and like a storage tote with a duffel of clothes. It was like all I had to my name at that time.
wow, wow.
And I called my job back. I said, "Hey, I'm actually not moving. Can I, come back to work?" Because I was going to be a hippie on the beaches of California or something like that. I had a bus ticket, and that day that I found out I was pregnant, it was the day I had the bus ticket. And it was also, funny enough, my daughter's father's birthday that day too. So he's messaging me, "You're gonna hang out, gonna get messed up," and I'm finding out that I'm pregnant, and I start going through the motions of being well. And so the biggest thing that I take from my recovery is, I didn't want to be like my father, like my mother, or any of the people that I had as role models growing up. I wanted to be different. So I really started to do, I would assume you're familiar with Recovery Capital. I started to do that without even knowing I was doing it. I've never been in any treatment. I've never, I did a couple of NA meetings and AA meetings, but that wasn't quite for me. But one thing that I take from being well is I had read about people who had suicidal ideation, and something that they had said is one thing that kept them moving was, who's going to feed my goldfish if I kill myself today? How long does it take someone to get to my dog if I were to be dead today? And so they had to
Right.
continue to keep themselves going to make sure that that person or that animal was safe. And I think for myself, that's something that I was doing. I struggled so much with my value, my self worth, and my own thoughts, and my the things I had endured, that my unborn baby was my vessel to go ahead and to add value, to add worth, to add meaning to my life.
Wow. Yeah.
Before I knew it, I had furniture, I had a nice TV, and then all of a sudden I had all the things for the baby. I had a bed, I had, kitchen appliances, whatever that was, whatever you needed for a home, it all slowly began to build up. And being able to be completely abstinent from substances during that time, allowed me time to think, allowed me time to reflect, to learn more about myself. I
And so
before
that is that, so that's so I mean, really no programs, no rehab, just this beautiful little life. And that was
raw
it.
dog.
That's beautiful.
Ooh,
That's an
yeah.
amazing thing. Damn,
And
that's a
it really
great
was
thing.
just raw dogging it. And at that time, when you're pregnant, you have all these people that move away, not move away from you, but they're still messaging me for the hookup, because I had stopped selling too. So, hey, are you
Right,
still
right.
able to get the morphs? Are you still able to find this, find that? So, you change your number, you change your people. And they're my buddy Sean, my best friend Sean, my best friend Sammy. Those are like siblings to me. They're family that's not blood, and they were a big part of support for me. And I worked all the time. That was another big thing. Is I was, if I wasn't cooking at Applebee's, I was serving at the Mexican restaurant down the road. And Mexican culture, they're, oh, you're pregnant here. They're feeding me every morning, and they care. They genuinely, that culture is absolutely amazing with Latinos and Mexican culture. It's just phenomenal. So you have these places that you're slowly finding that you belong. And even with Applebee's, I end up the people that I worked with at that Applebee's, and I've worked at 4 Applebee's now. I just kind of followed for to where I live now. I've worked so many Applebee's, but the support and the amount of community that people give you in some of those spaces, it ends up being enough to feel all right. And while you continue to do the self work, right? So for me,
Right, right,
moving,
right,
being better for my daughter was a big piece of that. And I have my daughter. Okay, well, I only had me, and I didn't reach out to my family for any help because it wouldn't have been good help. It wouldn't have been something that I had. It wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have felt good, and I really don't talk to a lot of my family still. But it did. It ended up prospering and blooming into this beautiful life, right? So I realized that people weren't going to stop reaching out to me. So I got promoted to management in Fargo. So I moved down to Fargo, which is like an hour away from Grand Forks. Um, and I lived there for about 2 years. That's only an hour away. So I still have people reaching out to me. I still have, people trying to be in my life, people that know me or end up, I don't want to say I was well known, but I was known. And I'm still searching for that piece that's missing, which essentially for me was a partner. And so I ended up meeting somebody online, and we ended up moving to Sioux Falls together. So I moved to Sioux Falls and I transferred Applebee's there. That relationship doesn't pan out. I end up in another relationship. That one doesn't pan out. And that one doesn't pan out. So it was like 3 relationships later, right? And I'm still searching for that part of me. But I think the biggest part of that is now that I'm here in the space at Face It Together, I've realized so much of my wellness was very much so reliant on my daughter as that vessel. And I never really got the chance to dive deep into what I need because I was so focused on what my daughter needed. You work, you take care of the home, you do those things. I had to do it all. So for me, the 9 to 10 months of being pregnant, great start. The 10 years of life that my daughter has had and always having to take care of her, great start. Great distraction. Great distraction from self. Great motivation. But now she doesn't need me as much. So she's,
right,
doing her own thing. So I'm finding myself with more time. And it's not dysfunctional thoughts, but you're realizing, well, what are my passions? And these are the things that we talk about with people about. What are your passions? What are things you used to do that you don't do anymore? And so be working as a peer support specialist here at Face It, I'm starting to learn the things that I preach, well, go ahead and apply that to yourself. You do stay so well distracted with work and your daughter and the house, taking care of everything, but what are you doing for you? And so that kind of leads me into where I'm at today is, I bought a paddleboard this year so I could take it out on the lakes because I do enjoy that. But it's something that, you put aside till the money's right. You put aside till the time's
right,
right.
right,
I picked up a journal this year and started writing more. Um, I did a 30-day challenge last month at the gym to work out more, and I didn't go all 30 days, but the days that I didn't go, I doubled up on the next. And so
right.
it was nice. I think I clocked like 25 hours of gym time last month, and I saw little definitions here and there, and saw weight loss and muscle tone, and that's my goal. So bringing that into to continuing to try to instill that into a healthy habit. So I'm starting to get back into that redefinition of self, and that's me today, right?
That's beautiful.
Doing therapy, doing those things is, I always tell people recovery is like a relationship, right? You can get the girl, you can get the guy, but how do you keep it? I can get recovery, I can get wellness, but how do I keep it? We can't be complacent. We can't just feel like,
Mm,
oh, I've got it, it's good. What's the work to keep it? And
right,
after having my distractions of employment and raising a little girl, and then now seeing that she's developing into her own sense of self, okay, what do I need to do to keep my recovery? And for me, it's continuing to try to have that redefinition, that rediscovery of self.
I
um
love it.
so yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's something that I've been, I have been working on, and speaking about like often is that like you've got to, if you're an addict and it's like if it's in your character, what you can't be is idle, because
Mhm.
that's dangerous. And so I just personally, I get addicted to cool stuff and I just stay getting, I'm just like, okay, well, I know that I'm a bit of a maniac and I'm going to like go overboard. So I might as well go overboard with stuff that like is valuable or, you know, admirable or, you know, that I can, you know, help others. Like getting addicted to anything like that is typically all right. Like people aren't going to look at you like a total scumbag, like when you just, you know, snorting lines by yourself. Then you're addicted that way. It's like, wow, you suck. It's like, so yeah, I feel what you're saying about like having these avenues, these like buckets for your energy. And so I applaud you on that. And so, like, let us know, like, what do you got on the horizon? I know that you're working in the program now as a peer support specialist, and so are you developing that as are you leaning into that more as a career? Do you want to become a therapist? What does it look like the near future for you?
You know, it's really uncertain. I enjoy the position I'm in now. I enjoy the shoes that I'm filling now. I just was promoted about a couple months ago to
Nice.
the coaching specialist. So I really, or excuse me, to the
Nice.
coaching supervisor. So I really enjoy that. So I'm looking more at the data aspect of things, learning more of the internal process of some of the things that we do, and that help to make a nonprofit go around. So I really enjoy that. Honestly, I would lie if I'd be lying if I didn't tell you this, but something that I'm seeing is that's kind of helped me in different ways. That I have different therapists and wellness coaches that I like to follow on TikTok. Like, you know,
Right.
some people's TikTok is full of nonsense, but mine's definitely mental health, addiction health, and then do-it-yourself projects. And so, you know, my daughter, she's pretty handy with the camera, and I'm thinking, well, what does it look like to start coaching videos and to being able to give this to spread the knowledge that I've obtained and the education that I've obtained here from Face It online to others who may not have those resources. So developing some different skits, some different material for that slowly but surely. It'll be a long time, but my kid, she's very very good with technology and yeah. Anyways, and she has like 14,000 followers for her videos that she does. She does different. Anyways, long story short, she could help me piece some things together and do some cool transitions. And so I've been slowly trying to write down some material for that, but that's gonna, you know, when that comes to fruition, I'll send it your way, Ryan.
Yes. Well, that's what we're waiting for. We're waiting for that stuff that we want. We want the content, but like good content, right? Like the useful stuff and, you know, stuff with a mission behind it. And I think that it's going to happen faster than you might imagine. You've just got to publish it, right? Like, you know, when I say publish it, like just send it, record it or whatever. And then, you know, before you know it, I think it would happen more rapidly because your heart is in a good place. And because of that, you're going to do great at it. And so I applaud you on that. And we're all looking forward to it. And so just so everybody knows, you know, obviously before I publish this episode of The Next Fix, I'm going to get all of her contact and tags so we can keep a close eye on your super bright future, you and your daughter. What's your daughter's name?
Charlie Rose.
Charlie Rose, man. Mm-hmm. Well, hey, listen, I really appreciate you coming on here. I appreciate you just making a glorious person out of what could have been, you know, who knows what. But like I'm looking at you. You look fantastic. You sound great. And again, we're all looking forward to what comes next for you. All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. I appreciate your time today. And yeah.
See ya.